What's going on, everybody? It is the Sports Nuts, and you get to see a brand new intro tonight. Let's get it.
Welcome to Sports Nuts University. Welcome to Sports Nuts University. Hey, let's go. Hey, let's go. Welcome to Sports Nuts University. We run this show. We run this show. Welcome to Sports Nuts University. Hands up, get loud. Hands up, get loud. Welcome to Sports Nuts University. SNU, wow. Making you proud.
Sports Nuts back in the game. Make you remember the name. Brandon came with the vision. Matt brought it all in the frame. Nobody rocking like Shane. Give you them facts from the brain. Every take hot like a flame. Then us going out with a bang.
Welcome to Sports Nuts University. Hey, let's go. Hey, let's go. Welcome to Sports Nuts University. We run this show. We run this show. Welcome to Sports Nuts University. Hands up, get loud. Hands up, get loud. Welcome to Sports Nuts University. SNU, wow. Making you proud.
You are now listening to The Sports Nuts.
Whoa, that was pretty awesome. I hope you guys really enjoyed that intro. Welcome to yet another amazing episode of the Sports Nuts. Don't mind my daughter in the background screaming. I apologize. We have a very special episode for you tonight. Yes, our good friend Mark, as you guys see, he is beside me. He is going to be interviewing the beat writer for your Utah Utes. Hey, real quick, special shout out to everybody listening on 95.5, KFCE, TigerNation.live, and the other 9, actually technically 10 amazing radio stations we air on. Plus, we now air in 58 countries worldwide. Thank you guys so much. You really are the backbone of our show. We really appreciate you. Also, you live on the island of Hawaii, more specifically Oahu, and you need someone to cater to your family outings, your corporate events, or even right now after you guys are cleaning up, obviously, unfortunately, from Hurricane Lala, and you need someone to cater to your food. Send me a message, Brandon Keeler on radio at gmail.com, and I'll get you in touch with Bobby, the owner of Columbus Cuisine. Man, tonight, y'all, we have a real treat for you. John, man, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. We greatly appreciate you. How are you doing, man?
Absolutely. I'm good. How are you guys?
We are good. Now I will be in the background seeing everything, but I want you guys to have an amazing interview. Mark, the floor is yours, man.
What's going on, everybody? So, little introduction tonight about my guest tonight is John Leone. Tonight we are going out west. We're going to talk about the Utah Utes football program entering one of the most significant transitions, I believe, in the school's history. As most people know, for more than 2 decades, Kyle Whittingham, synonymous with Utah football, helping transform the Utes from Mountain West power into a national respected program. So now they have Morgan Scalley taking over and a new era begins. So the expectations in Salt Lake City certainly haven't gone anywhere. John, what's going on, man? Nice of you to join me this evening. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah, man. I'm excited to have you, my friend. So we're going to jump right into this, man, because I want to talk about the obvious. For the first time in more than 2 decades, Kyle Whittingham is no longer leading Utah football. So how different does the program feel without him at the helm right now?
It feels different, but not as different as it usually would be going through a coaching change. The man taking over for Kyle Whittingham is Morgan Scalley, and he was a player at the University of Utah. He has been the defensive coordinator for nearly a decade now. And so while it is a transition going from, Kyle Whittingham, 20 years as the head coach of the program, to Morgan Scalley, who's never been a head coach before, the culture and a lot of the same, aspects of the program are remaining the same, really. And I think that's very much for the best. I know Coach Scalley is wanting to keep a lot of those strong suits intact while he's been behind the scenes, and you can tell he's been preparing for this moment to kind of take over.
Well, when you look back at what Coach Whittingham built at Utah, going from the Mountain West days to the Pac-12, now to the Big 12, what do you think his lasting legacy is going to be?
I mean, I think there is a bittersweet kind of aspect to it right now with fans. But I think overall, once the dust settles and everyone looks back at Kyle Whittingham's legacy, it'll be, nothing but positivity and giving Whittingham his flowers. I mean, reality is he, for the last 20 years, took Utah from a Mountain West program with not many accolades or much national respect to a Power Four program that is featured on national television more often than not on Saturdays. So I think reality is he did a lot for the program, and while it is tough to see him make the change from Utah up to Michigan where he's at now, I think at the end of the day, fans are grateful and will be even more grateful once it's all said and done.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, man, he had an impossible job coming in for Urban Meyer when he came in. So, that a lot of people probably was uncertain about him when he came in. So I think it's a lot for you guys to be excited about. So I want to kind of get into the roster. When you look at this roster heading into the season, what position group gives you the most confidence?
Most confidence, I honestly think it's hard not to go with the quarterback position. Utah's bringing back Devin Dampier, who was the quarterback last year. He threw for, I want to say, 24 touchdowns and ran for 10 on top of that. And he was suffering through, or I guess fighting through a injury to his groin all throughout that season, which you never would have expected just seeing his numbers on paper. So I think between Dampier entering his senior year and then the backup Bird Ficklin, Utah's quarterback room is, I would argue, too deep, as good as any quarterback room in the country, at least that I've grown accustomed to. So I think, yeah, you see, everyone knows what Dampier's capable of, and then you take a look into Ficklin and kind of the explosiveness that he was able to provide last season. It will be tough to figure out how to play both of those guys at certain points, but I think if one goes down, the other is more than capable of filling in the gap.
Well, okay, so on the other side, where's the biggest question mark or concern?
The biggest concern, I would say, is probably the offensive and defensive lines. The offensive line lost all 5 starters up front to the either to graduation or to the NFL draft. Utah had 2 offensive tackles drafted in the first round of the NFL draft this year, and the 3 interior linemen are all gone as well. So starting 5 new faces up front is obviously a massive question mark in and of itself. And then the defensive line, Utah lost 2 starters to Michigan that followed Whittingham there, and then the other Fano brother who was playing on the edge is also graduated. So between the O line and D line, basically every starter from the 2025 season is elsewhere. And so I think that's probably the most concerning position groups in my eyes, just because of the new faces and I guess lack of experience. So yeah, I guess that's my answer to that question.
So, who's one player Utah fans already know who you believe could take a significant step forward this season?
That's a good question. I think immediately my mind goes to Wayshawn Parker, the running back. He last season, once he kind of took over as the running back one in the offense, he was amazing. He almost broke 1,000 yards despite splitting carries through the first 6 weeks. And I think once he kind of took over that running back one role was really showing his true colors and what he could be. And I think now that he's starting the season as the running back one and has really put on some good weight, I think he's in for an explosive and really big year that I think could potentially put him into NFL draft conversations.
Okay. Now, so like I said, one thing that Utah's traditionally been known for being physical, playing great defense, developing players in the transfer portal and the NIL era. Can Utah continue with that same formula under the new regime?
I would answer yes to that. And I think while Utah is gonna, in in my eyes, gonna try to throw the ball more, be more of a threat downfield rather than being a top three rushing offense year after year like they have been. I think the defense is going to remain basically the same under Scally. He brought Colton Swan in, who was part of his defensive coaching staff, to be the replacement defensive coordinator after Scally was promoted to head coach. And so I think on the defensive end, the scheme is going to remain very, very similar, if not the same. And on the offensive side, they still are hoping to play with that, grit and overpowering run game, like you were mentioning, and with I guess adding the aspect of downfield passing and kind of trying to throw defenses off guard with a lot of different playmakers, because that's something that I think Utah was lacking, especially last year, but even before then.
Yeah, as a Penn State graduate, bringing Utah to the Big 12, that was always a big concern for me. I'm not going to lie. And now having Whittingham over there in Michigan, that's like a double whammy there, I think. So, now I want you to give me one player who may not be getting much attention nationally right now, but could be a name everybody knows by the end of the season.
Sorry, I think I cut out that.
Yeah, you're cutting out.
John, you with us?
John, can you
I'm
hear me?
John?
here. Yeah.
Okay,
can
there it
you hear
goes.
me?
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I
sorry.
hear
I
you
don't.
now. No, you're
Okay.
fine, my friend. You're fine. Now I like I said, I don't know if you heard me, but can you give me a one player who may not be getting much attention nationally right now, but could be a name that by the end of the season everybody's talking about?
Yeah, I think I'll go to the defensive end for this one. One player that really initially comes to mind for me is Lance Holtzclaw. He is a defensive end, and he started his career at Washington, transferred to Utah, and has kind of just been waiting to gain a starting spot on the defensive line. And you look at that guy, he's a unit. He's super powerful and explosive off the edge. And I think now that he kind of has a role as a starting defensive end for Utah's defense, he is in a position to shine. I think Utah has a history of really having strong defensive ends and putting guys in good spots to rack up sacks and tackles for losses. And I kind of expect Lance Holtzclaw to take the step as the main guy, as the mayor of Sack Lake City, as they like to say in Utah.
I've heard of that before too, man. Now you guys have produced some tremendous players over the years. Eric Weddle, Steve Smith. When you look at the current program, is there anybody who you would say has potential to eventually belong in that conversation?
I would say there are a few. The defensive backs, I think there's a lot of pro potential there. I like Jackson Benny. He can really do it all. He can play safety, he can play nickel, he can play corner. He's just a really athletic guy. I expect Jackson Benny to have a good season this year, and if he plays well enough, he should get a spot on an NFL roster. And then you look at other defensive backs. Elijah Davis is the cornerback one. He's following the steps of Jalen Johnson on the Bears and Clark Phillips on the Falcons now. Two recent NFL corners out of Utah. I think Elijah Davis has the potential and definitely the build to follow those guys up and make it to the NFL. And then another one I think of is the safety Rabbit Evans. He was actually injured last season, suffered a knee injury and missed basically the entire season. And he'll be back for this year, says he's feeling 100% healthy. And I think Rabbit Evans could surprise a lot of people at the safety position. He's a really athletic guy.
Well, like I said, I think, once again, I'm learning about Utah. Like I said, we've, that's why I had you on here. We have a whole new, a whole different audience who can learn about Utah football. But one thing that I do know that y'all also done, y'all not only had tremendous players, but y'all also had tremendous coaches as well. Urban Meyer followed up by Kyle Whittingham. What is it about this program that has allowed it to develop not only players but coaches as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. The thing that comes to mind, obviously, with Urban and Whittingham and now Scally is they all kind of followed each other. They were in the program, kind of learned the culture, were able to build after another, and kind of mold themselves into a head coaching role. And so I think you mentioned it with Urban. He kind of set the tone and turned Utah into a team that people took seriously. And Kyle Whittingham was in the program as an assistant coach at the time, kind of just waiting for his turn. And when he got that promotion, it was on the ground running from there. He was able to continue on that culture and kind of bring in players that he knew would fit into that culture. And I expect it to be no different now that Morgan Scally's at the helm. I think he's been in this program. He understands what it takes to be successful on the offensive and especially defensive end. And I think that goes to show kind of what kind of a culture Utah has built up, not only the last 10 years, but the last 20, 25, even 30 years, if you go back.
And that's one thing I want to talk about. Like I said, you got some fantastic talent come out of Utah. I mean, really, truly, y'all really have coaching wise, player wise. And for one thing, I always say that Utah has consistently won. They've consistently been very good, but they always consistently seem to be like the underdog story. Like people, what do you think the reason is they don't get like the national prominence they really deserve?
I think it boils down to the amount of talent that comes in the door at Utah. I think I saw it firsthand when Utah was in the Pac-12, competing against teams like USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, teams that are, getting 5-star recruits, it seems like, at every position every year. Utah, on the other hand, seems to be building something on 3 and the occasional 4-star recruits. And I think that kind of goes to show that Whittingham, and I think Scally as well, but maybe a little bit less so than Whittingham, was willing to, bring in guys that were being overlooked a little bit and were hungry and felt, maybe a little bit disrespected by those bigger programs, and said, okay, we're going to turn you into an NFL caliber player. And it doesn't matter if you're a 5-star coming out of high school, because, you look at the stats and Utah has just as many, if not more, draft picks than the Washingtons, the USCs, the UCLAs of the world. And you see that carry on to the Big 12 as well. Now the Big 12 doesn't have the same name brands as the Pac-12 did in terms of at the peak, but you still have teams like TCU, Texas Tech, especially Texas Tech now, Baylor, those schools in Texas that are getting really strong recruiting classes, Arizona State, and Utah is still able to compete and kind of turn players that are being overlooked into NFL caliber talents.
So when you look at the Big 12 this season, where does Utah realistically fit? Is it a team that should be expected to compete for the conference championship?
I think, you look at Utah from an outside perspective. You see new head coach, 5 new offensive linemen, only a handful of starters returning on either side of the ball. And it's easy to kind of write them off and say, well, there's a lot of uncertainty here. But one thing I do think is that Scally knows what he's doing. He's hired guys from within, and Utah, really was able to get experience from a lot of the depth pieces last year that stuck around, and I don't think it's as new a roster as people make it out to be. And the schedule is super easy. I expect Utah to be favored in every game, all 12 regular season games. Maybe not because Utah's the Texas Tech of the conference, but because, Utah doesn't play Texas Tech. Utah's an easy schedule, and I expect Utah to at least be in the conversation when it comes down to the last few weeks of the season. I optimistically think they should win double-digit games, but I don't see Utah winning less than 8-7 games this season.
So what game on Utah's schedule do you circle? Do you think is going to tell us the most about what the team really is?
I think there are 2 in back-to-back weeks late in the year. At home against BYU, huge rivalry. BYU's gotten the best of Utah the last few matchups, but I think, Scally knows more than anyone what that rivalry means to people within the state, and will have the team fired up for that game. It also helps that game is in Rice-Eccles Stadium. Utah will be hosting BYU this year, and so I think that will be the first game that kind of tests Utah and shows us what they're about. And then the following week, Utah travels down to Tucson to play against Arizona. And I think Arizona is a team that's a little bit overlooked as well. I think Noah Fafita should be a really good returning quarterback for the Wildcats, and I think that'll be a tough game for Utah to get up to the week after that Holy War game against BYU.
Yeah, I was about to talk to you about the Holy War game, but you kind of went into that. Now, what is a game that you could see, maybe a game that you think Utah should come in, they should be favored, but could be a game that could trip them up?
I honestly want to say I'll give you 2 games again. I think on the road at TCU is kind of a trap game. That one is the week after Arizona. So that 3-week stretch kind of towards the end of the schedule is, I think, the scariest part of Utah's schedule if you had to pick one out. And then also Houston comes to Utah, to Rice-Eccles Stadium. And I think Houston, I saw they're ranked in the AP top 25 preseason poll, and I think they should be solid. So that's a game that, could be overlooked, but it's hard to win games at Utah, and I would say the game at TCU is probably the most likely trip up game.
Yeah, that watch games in Utah on TV, and I think that stadium gets really, really loud and is really, really underrated as far as the liveliness of that crowd, because people over here on the East Coast, a lot of people are not watching those guys at 10 o'clock at night our time or something like that. People like myself who live and breathe this stuff, I watch whatever's on. So I've caught a bunch of Utah's games, and I want to correct myself earlier. I thought Utah was on Penn State's schedule this year for some reason. That's Oregon. My bad. So I want to correct myself on that one. I was kind of tripped up on that. Now, if Utah is going to exceed expectations this season, this is a 2-part question. What has to happen? And if things don't go accordingly to plan, what do you think will have been the reason?
Well, I think one thing that's nice is expectations aren't as high as they usually are for Utah this season. Just for the given factors that I've already said, the new coach and all that stuff. I think expectations from what I've seen, they're expected to win around 8 to 9 games this year, which you would think, that's high expectations. That's a good season. But given the fact that the schedule is that easy, I think Utah probably should win more games than that. I think they would have to drop a pretty bad game to go under that mark. And so I do think Utah does meet expectations. And if they were to not meet expectations, it would be hard for me to right now here, Utah lost 5 games. And I would immediately say, okay, did Dampier get hurt? Did Bird Ficklin get hurt? Did Wayshawn Parker get hurt? I think those 3 guys, if they were to get injured, which, they all run the ball hard and none of them are huge guys. So I think it's not a given that they'll all stay healthy. But I think if Utah were to, fall short of those expectations, it would be hard for me to believe that it doesn't come at the fault of one of those guys, having an extended injury.
Yeah. Now, as far as Morgan Scalley, he knows his program as well as anybody, being a player and a coach. But replacing Whittingham, that's an enormous task. How much pressure is on him immediately, and how patient will the Utah fans be?
I like to think the Utah fans will be patient. But at the same time, this is a strong roster. I think this is a good team that people within the organization are expecting to find success. And, coming off an 11-win season in 2025, it's hard to take, 3 less wins as not a step back for Scally. I think he'll be given patience by fans and especially people within the athletic department. I know Scally has tremendous relationships with everyone involved, but at the same time, this is a strong roster, and I think he's kind of been ready to take over this role for a long time. And I think it would maybe be a little bit disappointing if Utah didn't find a little bit of success this season.
Yeah, and that kind of led me into my next question because, there was a time when Utah, they were the program just trying to prove it belonged, and with college football, with the college football's bigger names. Has the standard changed to the point where simply just having a good season isn't good enough anymore?
I would say so. Yes, I would agree with that. I think once Utah kind of cracked the ability and showed the ability to win the Pac-12 conference. They won back-to-back Pac-12 championships and made back-to-back Rose Bowls in 22 and 23. I think once that happened, the expectation rose. And it was like, okay, Utah's here. Like, they can compete in a power conference and they can do what it takes to kind of win championships and win big games. And I think, that's something that we haven't seen the last few years just for whatever reason. But I think under Scally, if Utah is able to go back to winning the big games and beating the teams that they should, then I don't see any reason Utah shouldn't be able to get back to conference championship level.
Absolutely. I agree with you once again. Now, one thing that I do want to circle back to, one thing that we talked about is Utah's ability to do more with less, basically. Where they're not getting the 5-star guys and, they're getting 3-star and occasional 4-star. But they've been exceptional at, taking those guys and developing them into NFL talent. Can that still be a competitive advantage in today's portal era?
That's a great question. I want to say yes. I think it kind of incentivizes those players who are more talented and maybe didn't see the field as much as they wanted to at, an Ohio State or a top caliber school like that. It incentivizes them to say, okay, let's let's step down a level. Let's go to Utah. Let's get some of the best coaching in the country. Let's follow this blueprint that they have and get drafted into the NFL. And I think with the transfer portal, especially, you will see a lot of players like that who, maybe don't get the reps, don't get the time that they feel they deserve at a school. And it will open the door for a school like Utah, who is known for improving these players and developing them into NFL talent. Kind of taking them and saying, all right, here you go. You were a 4-star, you were a 5-star out of high school, and we'll take you in and we'll develop you and we'll turn you into an NFL guy, regardless of if you were getting snaps last year or not.
Well, and one thing I do want to talk about also is Utah. We talked about the stadium. I talked about how I've watched games from TV, and I think it's very, very underrated. But for most of our people, we're a lot on the Southeast and the Midwest and stuff like that. So for somebody who's never been to Rice Echo Stadium for a big game, what's that experience actually like?
I would say it's the most underrated environment in the country from what I've seen. In the Pac-12, you'd hear a lot about Washington, you'd hear a lot about Oregon and how crazy those environments get. And, I've been to both stadiums during close games, and I can tell you firsthand that neither of them get as loud as Utah does. And I think Utah Stadium, Rice Echo Stadium, isn't the biggest stadium. I think it holds around 55,000 people, but it is small and it's compact and it really keeps the sound in the stadium. And I think it really throws off opposing quarterbacks, opposing lines. You see a lot of false starts from teams that come to visit Rice Eccles, and so it's a big advantage for sure. And I think it's definitely underrated.
Well, finally, John, last but not least, my friend, final prediction for the season. What do you think? Give me the baseline of where you think Utah can be at, and give me what you think their max will be.
Okay, I honestly think the lowest win total I see Utah having is 8 wins. I think the floor is 8-4, and I think the ceiling, I know I'm optimistic about it, but I think given the fact that Utah is favored in every game as of now, I don't see any reason that they couldn't go 12-0. With that being said, do I think they'll go 12-0? Probably not, but I do think there is a possibility of it, and I think in the middle at 10-2 is probably the most likely outcome that I see.
And if this team were to make it into the playoff, because they go 10-2, 11-1, something like that, they're in. What do you think? You think the team has potential to make some noise? Does it depend on the seeding? Or what do you think their range could be if they make it into the playoff?
I like to think they could be an Indiana 2.0. I know that Utah is kind of modeling their program after that, but I really don't think they're there this year. I think in a couple years they could be to that level where they're overlooked, they're in a strong conference, and they just kind of squeeze their way to the championship and win the whole thing. Do I think that can happen this year? Probably not. I don't think between the unknown roles at offensive line and defensive line, there's enough strength there to kind of overpower and win games in a variety of different ways if they were to make it to the college football playoff. But I do think they have the potential to make it to the playoff.
Well, you talked about Indiana 2.0. You remember that first year Signetti went, everybody said they shouldn't even been there. And then the next year they were, probably the most dominant team in football. So, you don't really have to do the first year. Now, one last thing I meant to ask you about is the loss of Kyle Whittingham. How did that affect recruiting with Scally taking on board, or was he able to save a lot of the recruits that originally committed to Whittingham?
Surprisingly enough, there was only one recruit that switched from Utah to Michigan. And granted, that was Utah's highest rated recruit, Celeste Moa, an athlete from in the state. But outside of that, Scally was actually able to recruit better from in the state than Whittingham usually was. So I was impressed with Scally's ability to, step up to that head coach recruiting role and kind of hit the ground running that fast.
Awesome, man. Well, that's my questions for you, man. Brandon, do you have anything that you want to add? You want to learn about?
So I do want to chime in about the Holy War. I will say that I've watched it many a times, whether it be on the basketball court or whether it be on the with TV. And so my school is University of Hawaii. That's where I went, is University of Hawaii. And there is a big rival between Hawaii and BYU, as we call them, BYU, because of the Mormon community based in Honolulu is very prominent there. So when you go to those types of matches, do you kind of stand to the side a little bit and just fear of like, this is absolutely insanely hectic for a regular game? And look, rival games I know are very common to be extra rowdy. I mean, Mark knows very well. There's the brawl. Everybody knows what's the term, the brawl, from the 2004 matchup between South Carolina and Clemson. How it literally was a brawl. But there's rivals all over.
I was literally there at that game.
Yeah. So what is your perspective when you go to the Holy War games where you see Utah and BYU play each other? What is your first reaction? Do you kind of take it in like, oh man, this is insane? Like, what is your how do you react when you go to those kinds of games?
I mean, I think I've thrown out the word underrated a lot this podcast. I think it genuinely is one of the more underrated rivalries in the country. Experiencing it firsthand last season down in Provo at BYU, I'm just a reporter, I'm not part of the team or anything. I'm walking on the field pregame and walk past the student section, just doing laps around the field, and I'm getting booed from the student section, and I'm getting chirped after the game by fans, and it's like, wow, okay, they're into it. And, Utah fans are certainly the same way. And, it's just within the state of Utah, it's such a big deal. That game, just gaining bragging rights for the next full calendar year is a huge deal. And I think the winning streaks that you've seen throughout the last couple decades have made it even more intense, because you have one team who has to keep the streak alive and one team who can't let the streak gain another year. And so we'll see that again with Utah trying to break BYU's streak. And so I am excited for that game. And yeah, the Holy War should be a really fun and entertaining game this year.
I gotta ask before we let you go, how old are you? You look really young to me. That's why I asked.
I'm 22.
Oh my word.
Wow.
I'm double your age, and Mark's slightly a little older than me, so we've doubled your age on it. I'm 42, and Mark's 46.
Yeah, I'm 46, so that's all right.
You're definitely a woman. I want to say this from the bottom of our hearts, John. We really do thank you enough, and thank you for getting to chance to be the guinea pig, as they call it, to air our new introduction. And we definitely want to have you on again towards bowl season if you're down for that. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds
Hey,
good,
man. So before we let you go, John, if people want to find you, they want to find your work, they want to learn more about Utah football, anything like that, go ahead and tell us how they can find you.
Okay, so my Twitter, my X, sorry, my X.
No, we call it
Twitter over here.
We call it Twitter here.
Twitter @_ John Leone. So just my name, JOHNLEONE. I write for the school paper, the Daily Utah Chronicle. I'm the sports editor there, and then I write for a site called Ute Zone, which is a partner of On3. So any of those places, you can find me and find my work. And yeah, there you have it.
Sounds good. Well, we do really appreciate you.
Well, we'll definitely be back in touch with you when bowl season comes, especially if Utah's in the playoffs. So
yes.
Sounds
John,
good.
I know you probably saw the lightning behind me. Yeah, there's some storms coming. So, but I want you to have a fantastic evening. Thank you seriously for taking time out of your evening to come on to us and let us bend everybody's ear for about 40 minutes. Really do appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. It was a blast.
You take care of yourself.
All right, buddy. You have a good one, man.
You as well.
All right, man. That was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty awesome to learn more about the University of Utah. Look, you know, and we have another mutual friend, Mark. You might know him, Mr. Jamal Anderson, Mr. Dirty Bird himself. He does his Utah symbol all the time. And I guarantee you when he sees this, because he watches, so when he sees this interview, I'm probably gonna get my phone blown up. Be like, oh, you guys interviewed him. That's what's up. So really cool on that one. Good job on that. I do want to let everybody know what is on tap for the entire network and the show. So this is what I have written out. Is actually it's a very exciting time, and I want to say welcome literally back to your favorite show, the Sports Nuts, and the entire network. We hope you guys really enjoyed this interview with Mark and our good friend John from basically from the University of Utah. Now the website will be up probably if the way I was told it should be next Wednesday is when it goes full. So we're literally right there. So if you guys can also let's acknowledge what Mark is doing. Mark has ballooned a lot of these amazing interviews, and I really got to commend him for he is attacking this full on. First off, I also want to say thank you guys to everybody who tuned in. Over 20,000 views alone on Mark's interview with Steven Garcia. And if you have not seen it, we encourage you guys to go back and check it out. It's really in depth. And actually, Steven Garcia shaved his head yesterday. So we were always thinking about him, but really cool interview on that one. Had over 12 million people listen to it on the radio. That's pretty fantastic. And now, as a reminder, all the episodes that are current archived in the shirts will also be on the website, and it's nuttysportstalk.com. The store, we do have a store up and running. It is, it'll also be on the website, so you'll be able to access it. You can buy your merchandise there. And I mean, why not get your Sports Nuts network and your Sports Nuts merchandise? It's going to be a lot of fun. We have a lot more things coming on that one. Are you guys also interested in being a part of this great network as a sponsor? Well, you can send me an email at brandonkeeler@gmail.com. You can email Matt, Shane. You can email Mark. Mark also has all the lists. I promise you, he has everything. Mark is the chief editor of the entire network. So if you guys can reach out to him. So we greatly appreciate that one. If you're interested also, if you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. Help us get to the year-end goal of at least 15,000, but we'd love to hit 20,000. And please help our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram counts grow as well. Remember, just share it with your friends and family and everyone. Say, hey, you know what? I found this really cool sports talk show, and I think you guys should check them out. So we greatly appreciate it. So tomorrow will be the season premiere of season 7, episode 253. We have, excuse me, the hiccups. We have Casey Detzel. He is the play-by-play announcer for the ECHL affiliate of the Stanley Cup champion, the Carolina Hurricanes. He's coming on. Really excited about that one. And then we have another episode on Wednesday, 253A. It is August 19th, and our good friend Ku'ule Agbenyani is back. Remember, we had a really good time with her. She's going to talk about UH sports. It will be a special time. It'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Hawaii time. Our good friend Marcus McCallum is also going to be joining us on that one, so we're really excited about that one. Episode 254 will be Friday, August 21st. The Minnesota Northern Lights, they're a pro hockey team based in the FPHL. It's the inaugural season, so they're going to join. Episode 255 is Tuesday, August 25th. Peter Blake, who covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's back. You know, we have a great time talking with him, so he's going to talk about the upcoming season for the Bucs. You know, we don't see Mike Evans there anymore. Who is his dark horses for the NFC South? 256 will be Friday the 28th. Jeff Lacuro, the PA announcer for the WNBA's Portland Fire, is joining the show. 257 will be Tuesday, September 1st. This is a rescheduled date for Ben Caminos. Remember, he was affected by the tornado up in Menasha, Wisconsin. And then on 258 will be Friday the 4th of September. I'm going to butcher his last name, but he is the play-by-play for the Carolina Hurricanes, Mike Maniscalco. I know I butchered that one badly. I'll have to ask him how he pronounces his name. But yes, he will be coming on Friday, the September 4th. Also, he will be interviewing with Mark on September the 15th. So we're really excited about that one. And then 259 will be episode 259, will be Tuesday, September the 8th. Chris Lowe, formerly of ESPN Now on 3 Sports, is joining. Mark, what days are your next set of interviews so people can tune in as well?
Well, I kind of double booked me, so I have a couple on the same nights as y'all. So I will not be live on YouTube. I believe I will be on Facebook Live.
Yes.
And then, but after the interviews are recorded or not, we'll be moving them over to YouTube.
Yes.
Because they're like I said, they're scheduled at the same time as the main show. But tomorrow night, we'll have Chapel Fowler. He is an insider for the Clemson Tigers for the state newspaper. I've interviewed him before at another network. Absolutely a lot of fun. He's very, very knowledgeable. You know, like I said, if you're a Clemson fan, please come join us, which, as you can see, I am not. But anyway, on Wednesday, I will have the voice legend from the broadcast booth, former voice of the Toronto Raptors, and now the longtime voice of the Chicago Bulls, Chuck Swirsky. He will be at 6:30. Like I said, that one will also, I believe, be on Facebook as well. Once again, you'll be able to catch those later on YouTube also. I have John Farr, and on the 25th next week, if you're a Gamecock fan, I'll have Michael Roth on with me for an interview. He was the ace pitcher both years. University of South Carolina won the College World Series, so he's definitely going to be talking to us about those times, about life after baseball, things like that. Definitely going to be a lot of fun for that one. I also have John Farber from the Charlotte Hornets. He's the play-by-play guy coming later on in September as well. And plus, like I said, working on plenty more, but that's what we got right now.
Yeah, and if you know somebody, or if you are somebody in the sports world and you'd love to have the chance to be interviewed, send Mark an email, or actually send me an email, send anybody an email on the network, and we will get you in touch with Mark for these interviews. So we greatly appreciate that. So with that being said, for everybody who tuned into the show tonight, listen live on the amazing radio stations that we air on, and our international audience, thank you. Seriously, like I said, you guys are the true backbones of making this network great. Mark, it's time to give your final goodbyes. Please give your final goodbyes.
All right. Thank you guys for everybody who watched tonight. Thank you for everybody, like I said, who did make my first interview. That one with Steven Garcia a ridiculous success, because I think me and Brandon were hoping for 10,000 views and we got double that. Yeah. So, like I said, that was a huge success. Like, once again, if you missed the interview with Kai Carlin from the Philadelphia 76ers Sixers Wire, you can definitely go back on YouTube and check that one out. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, he had, if you're an NBA fan or a Sixers fan, definitely keep watching, because once again, there's more coming, guys.
Yeah, we have a lot more coming. We cannot wait. I will be back with you tomorrow night. Remember, season 7 starts tomorrow. We're going to start at 7:35 Eastern. Casey Ditzel, the play-by-play for your Greensboro Gargoyles. And as always, tell you guys, peace up, A-Town down, Y. It's the greatest sports city voice. Hey, you guys have a fantastic evening. If you live in the South, I know you're feeling the effects of the weather right now. I know Mark's starting to probably get it. We're definitely getting here. So, but I want you guys to be safe, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, you guys get to be treated. You got treated with the intro tonight. You get to be treated with the new outro. As we always tell you guys, enjoy your evening, and as always, goodbye.
Welcome to Sports Nuts University. Another show is in the books tonight. We talked the games, we gave you everything. Now let the campus fade into the light. Sports Nuts University.